Welcome to the Matchcast with me, Jake Fowles, my co-host Rich Chapman, and today's star guest, Paul Newell. We had a week off last week, so we're going to start off with last week's Evesham Festival. So 3 days of river fishing. The first day, the Wychavon Champs, which was on the Saturday. Out of the 3 days, this was the only one with no bloodworm allowed. We had Tom Scoley, who ended up winning the match. He had a barbel and ended up with £8 10 ounce. Pretty much all of that was that barbel. Then we had Steve Hemming in second, £7 4, and Lee Gardner with £6 2. So, Do you think the exclusion of bloodworm for that particular match is a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I think it's a good thing for that one, because there are so many people there that would not have used any bloodworm in the qualifying matches, and it's been well attended over the years by a lot of local people, and they need the opportunity they'd like the opportunity to display their skills for fish that probably are not going to be bothered with bloodworm too much.
So you're thinking the ugly fish and...
I'm thinking, we know there's barbel these days, but years ago there was a lot of dace and a lot of chub in the river.
Yeah. Doesn't seem so many dace these days.
Oh dear, a dace is as rare as rock and horse poo.
But,
and I would like to know why.
Yeah.
Don't know. It does seem one of those matches though now that the last probably 2 or 3 years it always seems to be just one or two big barbel that win it in the end, doesn't it? So
unfortunately, yes. It's I think Dave Harrell won the match. I can't remember which particular day, but he won a big one with a barbel. There was Charlie Haig that was suffering from his stroke, which was a wonderful achievement. He targeted a bar. He couldn't hardly bite up with his. The illness had affected his hands a lot and his arm.
Yeah.
But he worked really hard, Charlie Haig, at how to catch that one barbel, and lo and behold, he won the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a real dear friend of mine, Charlie, and but there's numerous people now won with a barbel.
Yeah.
It's a reflection, unfortunately, of how the river's gone.
Yeah, because you always, obviously, when it's smaller fishing, we'll get on to the days after where the weights are a little bit better with the introduction of bloodworm.
Yeah.
Those fish when bloodworm isn't in don't seem to show. There's rafts of little roach, but they are very little roach, which without bloodworm you just don't seem to catch.
I mean, it baffles me as to why all of a sudden a roach 4, 5, 6, 10 ounces appears on bloodworm. You can't catch the thing on a maggot these days.
No.
But even hemp seed now, it's nothing to what it was. I can't remember anybody. I can't really remember anybody winning a prize at this event with hemp seed.
Not in a while. I know through the qualifiers and through the midweek where they've got a bit more room, they fish hemp. There's some really good hemp anglers there.
There is. Yeah, you got Ian Shepherd and
Shep's one of the best.
Sheps and. My mind's gone a little bit blank now, sorry, fellas, but you come to the result and you got Lee Gardner, who he's targeted the venue now. Lee, he's a real banner waver for the Evesham, and he loves it to bits, and he got his just reward. He got a prize.
Yeah. And Steve Hemming is.
Steve Hemming, he's there all the time.
Yeah.
Got himself a great peg. Actually, I saw him. I didn't mean to be rude, but I saw him at Tewkesbury the following day after his result, and he said, "It's good to be here today, Paul. This is Tewkesbury." Yeah. I said, "A lot better than being at Evesham," and he said, "I love the place." And unfortunately, I don't really follow it as close as perhaps I should. But for me. I saw the unfortunate part is I saw Evesham through when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
When it had dace, chub, roach, and there were some perch as well. But you could. There was a time on the Warwick Haven you could stick your hand into a bait apron, because I mean there was a time we didn't always sit on those North
On
Sea
the
platforms, did
yeah.
they? You could stick your hand into a bait apron and go like that, and the dice would jump. After a little while, they knew that it was coming.
Yeah.
And you had people like Dave Thomas, who perfected the feed and strike method.
Yeah.
All across the river, keep striking all the way back, and he was wonderful at it. And then Dave Arrow managed to upset him because he laid claim to it, and they had a little spat, which I remember. And Dave Arrow, being his clever self, he said, yes, Dave, you might have invented the method, he said, but I think I somewhat perfected it. And unfortunately, I mean, as wonderful an angler as Dave Thomas was, I can't say as I heard of him ever since.
No.
I can't think that was the death knell of Dave Thomas, but I remember it was an interesting spat. And
Dave Harrell's tongue was the answer.
The rascal that Dave Harrell is, my arch enemy, of course. But what happened for me personally, I've got to tell you this because you're talking to me about the Evesham weekend. Is when the demise of the Warwickshire Raven it coincided with the sale of water to private industry. And I know it's rather political, but unfortunately, it nosedived. We used to go upstream a little bit to Twyford Farm and catch bags and bags of fish.
Yeah. And
the following year, the fish was looking decidedly bedraggled, and first the gudgeon disappeared. The minnows disappeared first. All the bottom feeders went first. The minnows, they was a staple food of the chub in the winter, and it made the things grow big. Not bronze maggots, it was minnows they was chomping on. And then gudgeon. You can't catch a gudgeon now. It's as rare as rock and horse poo.
Yeah.
Maybe it's partly pollution, zander, predators, loads of predators now. And then the chub started noticeably deteriorating. You could see just the health of the things when you catch them. They just didn't look healthy.
Not the solid, muscly chub
no,
that you saw.
No, they were starting to look decidedly unhappy with what they was living in. And dace, well, they sort of, you never saw any floating. Whatever they did to that water, I don't know. Whatever happened, you didn't see rafts of them belly up. And I'm sure whoever's responsible didn't go and net them at night and keep it a secret from us. I'm sure that didn't happen.
No,
So what happened for me was, and Ken Giles was one of the very first to disappear. Top name, disappeared from the Evesham scene. Because this was when carp commercials was coming on the scene. And we had Moorlands Farm and Woodlands View.
Yeah.
And you could see them catching great netfuls of fish week in, week out, match after match. And you thought, why am I coming on the river bashing my head against a brick wall?
Yeah.
All the skills that you'd learned, everything you'd learned was gone. Waggler fishing, stick float fishing, you're chucking into you. Dear, oh dear. I could remember going to Hillborough, West Hillborough, which is upstream of Bidford. Fantastic stretch of fish. Oh, pristine, wonderful. I went on a Drennan Super League match and Paul Downs won the section with £6 a gudgeon. And I was on a wonderful chub peg where I'd caught, well, not a wonderful chub peg, but a decent chub peg where we had a saying where you ran the waggler. You wore a groove in the bottom of the river, and you would run it. If you wanted to catch a chub, you was going to be a good waggler angler and keep it going and going and going and trying all different depths and dragging hard on the bottom, up in the water, whatever. All those things that you'd gathered over the years, little hooks, strong line little hooks was my thing. And I never caught a bloody chub. and £6 a gudgeon he had, and I thought, I want to catch £6 a gudgeon, or I thought I did. but there wasn't £6 of gudgeon on every peg. And in the end, Kenny Giles said to me, he said, do you know what you want to do? He said, on the Evesham weekend, what's that, Ken? He said, book in at Docklow. He said, it's the most wonderful 3-day festival that you will. He said, and all the memories of Evesham and the Warwickshire Haven will drift into insignificance.
Yeah.
And that was where I went. And oh, goodness above. How fantastic. And if anybody tells me that puddle fishing is crap, what a load of shite. At the time, this was the time when you had Pimlott.
Dave
Pimlott, Chapman, Desi Southern, and lots of other top. The worm anglers from the northwest. You know, what was I can't remember who their sponsor was. It might have been TriCast. Maybe TriCast. Might have been Keynets, perhaps. I don't know. They've had that many sponsors, haven't they?
Yeah.
But
Dave Pimlett still does it up at Partridge Lakes, fishes worm everywhere he goes, and a bit of hold off and stuff like that.
But I can, do you want me to drift into where I went into commercials?
No, because we're going to get to your fishing
very
soon.
Yeah, I'm going up the upper path.
You're in the next section.
Okay.
Yeah, we've still not congratulated Tom Scully on his
Tom,
his win at Evesham.
Can I tell the story? What I've heard about Tom.
It depends which one.
Well, he did.
Go on. Yeah,
he did catch the barbel.
Yeah.
He did catch the barbel.
But he was on the phone, wasn't he? When he.
Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard somebody slightly. I mean, you know, I try to be reasonable and fair on Facebook. Don't always work that way, but I try. But I remember somebody told me that somebody said, Tom Scully, you're having a fucking laugh. He was on his phone most of the day.
Yeah.
But anyway, hey, listen, that's a good trick, isn't it, for a barbel?
It's one of those, isn't it? It's going to be a boring match, fairly boring match, isn't it? If you're sitting out for 1 or 2 bites, you've kind of got to get in position.
That's it. He don't want to get neck ache, does he? Looking up at his rod, he's looking at his phone, and he's seen it. If it was going to be hooked, it was hooked.
Without a doubt, in the way match angling's gone now, whereas it was all active, some branches of the sport it's all action, and other branches it's not so all action, and very often it can be sometimes a game of who can leave it in the longest.
Yeah, and to be fair to Tom, I've seen him hook the fish. Well, there's a video of him when he was playing it, and he fairly winched it in. There was no messing about.
He didn't give it any quarter.
No, I was thinking, like, you've hooked a barbel, you know that there's a very good chance that that's going to win you the match, and he fairly winched it in and scooped it first time. And fair play to him. He's
proved himself in the last few years. He's proved himself to be adapted all methods of fishing.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll leave that. Well done, Tom Scully, on that. Yeah. Tom Scully first, Steve Hemming second, Lee Gardner third.
Well done to all those 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Evesham Championship, bloodworm allowed. Spud Murphy won it, £11, peg 8.
Crafty rascal Spud Murphy.
Steve Hemingway second,
yeah.
£9 9oz, peg 18, and Tom Hobbs was third with £9 2oz. An interesting thing here, so bloodworm was allowed. Spud Murphy, so there was a bit of a, obviously Sam isn't very well, who usually supplies the bloodworm and joker.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
He'd been in hospital, so I believe he's on the mend now. So thoughts with him. But Spud Murphy scraped his own bloodworm.
Yep.
Very much, his bloodworm and joker was the best quality on the bank.
Yep, I've heard this.
And he's won the match quite comfortably, £11 from peg 8, which is a good peg in the town.
Not only that, let's not forget that Spud Murphy had the same illness that I had, more or less at the same time, 3 years ago.
Yeah,
the big C. I think he had the big C bowel. Mine was rectum cancer that I described as a pain in the arse. and it is in. But anyway, apart from that, Spud. I mean, I've told the world about my illness really, but Spud's been a bit more introvert.
Yeah.
But he's had to live with all the same problems that I had. He had an ileostomy bag on his stomach the same as I did, and he had the operation to reverse it. So not only has he won that event against all the, he's been an international himself anyway, but right at the very top of the game. but he's bothered himself to go and get the finest bait available.
Yeah. And it's not easy scraping bloodworm.
God, blimey, what a performance.
Yeah.
What a performance.
Before the day.
And none of those other anglers there, I mean, I spend a lot of time I have spent a lot of time with Steve Emmengray talking and discussing fishing in the last few years. You know, he's brought my angling back up to a level that's reasonable. After my 16 years on commercial fishing, I needed something different, and when I come back to it, well, he lifted me to much better now than I'd been for a long time.
Yep.
But I forgot my school of thought a little bit there. Spud Murphy, yeah, he's put that effort in to get that bite, and there's not many others can hold their hand up, is there, to doing that?
No, definitely not.
I mean, years ago, like in river fishing years ago, there was the thing about wasp grubs.
Yeah.
Wasp grubs was banned because it wasn't freely available to everybody. Well, it bloody well was, wasn't it? You know, I mean, we can all go and
Dig up
you
some
can
wasp
follow
grub.
a wasp and follow. I mean, I never did.
Yeah.
I never followed a wasp and tried to track down these wasp grubs.
No, I wouldn't be doing that.
But I remember it being banned. It was some sort of magical bite, you know, that was unbeatable and all the rest of it. But no, fair play to Spud, and fair play to all the Shakespeare team that have won the thing yet again.
Yep, so leading on to that, the next day, the team championship. So it was the now Cadence Super Team. So they've changed the sponsor from Shakespeare to
and
Cadence.
congratulations to
so
Jamie Robbins for taking that on board.
Yeah, so that's now Mike Bedding, James Robbins, as you mentioned, Lee Gardner, Spud Murphy, Tony Marshall. In terms of an Evesham pedigree, they've got one or two that are pretty decent down there.
Just a lot.
They went on and won that with 63 points, and that man Spud Murphy won the match again, £12,
Yeah.
10 ounce. Starlet's A team, so generally they think they had an A and a B. Yeah, they did have an A and a B team. They had the same amount of points, so brilliant performance by them. Mark Downs, Cameron Hughes, Steve Hemingway, Sean Ashby, Darren Bickerton. But the Cadence Super Team beat them on overall weight.
Yeah.
And then in third was Drennan Barnsley Blacks, which seem to be winning
Always
a lot,
there
and
and
they're always
thereabouts,
there
aren't
and
they?
thereabouts, aren't they?
You can't ever write those off, no.
And obviously they, looking at the two teams there, well, three teams, Barnsley arguably at Evesham don't get as much practice in as some of the others. But a great performance.
Oh,
But
they just seem to be able to turn up and do it, don't they? I mean, I don't think that, when they go down the Gloucester Canal as well, I'm not sure that they put the same amount of hours in as other teams, but
they seem to be able to rock up and do
yeah,
it, don't they?
yeah. So that only goes to prove that it's the technical use of the bait as opposed to knowing every nook and cranny of depths and what.
Yeah.
I mean, they know what lives in there, don't they?
Yeah.
Evesham was much the same, isn't it? What
Yeah.
are they fishing for?
Yeah.
Odd perch and some roach, and
Yeah.
they ain't fishing. Oh, there's some skimmers what appear when there's
If
a
it
drop.
colours.
If a drop of colour comes into it,
Yeah.
yeah. But other than that, yeah, it's knowing what to chuck it in with,
Yeah.
where to chuck it in, and the right rigs over the top of it, and when to top up and what to top up with.
Yeah, and I think with Cadence winning it for the second year in a row, they've got it. So Starlet's, obviously the team speaks for itself, and Barnsley exactly the same.
You are talking to the world's least knowledgeable bloodworm angler, but my bloodworm success is.
Yeah, but you can appreciate a good team and good anglers.
I
Can't you?
talk about the bite and that. I mean, my only use of bloodworm, but well, I used to have some of that dead stuff on newspaper that was offered up.
Yeah,
And but I did used to use it at Tunnel Barn Farm, but that's a completely different.
yeah, and it's allowed there.
But I mean, interesting. You see, is what did happen to me was I used to get bloodworm and joker from Nigel Bull. I think he used to get it from Sam and then split it up a bit. But he always looked after me okay, Nigel Bull. Until the one fateful day where he turned up with that Russian stuff. And I opened the pipe, I said, "What's that then?" "It's dead." "No, it's not." He said, "It's Russian, it's from estuaries or something."
Yeah,
Oh. Anyway, I didn't like the look of this stuff, and sure enough, I didn't catch anything.
no,
And 3 matches later, and I was catching with this stuff that used to wriggle and dance.
Yeah. So that's the English joker.
What
Is it? Or
Belgium,
Belgium, yeah, wherever
Belgium,
else.
French.
Yeah, so it's very different. One's very good for roach, and one's looks dead and black. And
But it's a very, very interesting conversation idea. I mean, I don't know whether you still want to talk about this part, but
depends if we'll get to it in your.
well, yeah, but this is the difference. You see, because I did think if Spud Murphy has got the Joker and Bloodworm in Great Britain, well, it's Welsh, isn't it? It's Welsh stuff, you would think.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably, for me, it's going to be the stuff that kicks up off the bottom, right? So I said I did, rather than having knowledge, I'm forming opinions in my mind as to why Shakespeare have beaten well, they didn't murder Starlets, but what I did suggest was that they used jokers that was kicking, and the other teams used Russian.
Yeah, from what I've seen of it, obviously, yeah, it's Polish and British Joker in it that's like lively and kicks up off the bottom, and yeah, the Russian stuff. I'd seen a lot that had that stuff.
I
that
think
looks
a lot
very
of that,
dead.
A lot of that comes from deep water in estuaries, and
Right.
it's very tiny, and it doesn't kick up off the
It's
bottom.
got no strength.
Now, after a few seasons of introducing that stuff into Tunnel Barn Farm, which is like overstocked by multiples of goodness knows how many fish, you couldn't catch an F1 anymore on Bloodworm. It was almost as if they, not that shite again, we're not having. I remember a top angler, I'm not going to mention his name, and he came to me, I think about the third lot of this Russian Joker I had at Tunnel Barn. Because you couldn't say what you wanted, you couldn't say I want, it was like what was imported, at least you got some kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I ain't so sure it was a great thing. On the third time, when I thought, not that stuff, I ain't having that stuff again, it's crap. And I got anglers telling me that I'd never won a penny on Bloodworm. Well, they hadn't won what I'd won, no chance. One particular well-known angler said, "What are you talking about, Paul?" He said, that Russian stuff's better. He said, it doesn't come off the bottom. And I was feeling a little bit sort of, what's the word? I wasn't feeling particularly like I was going to be easy with the fella. And I said, what the fuck do you know? What you talk, you don't know jack shit. That stuff is not great for F1s. You want the stuff to kick off the bottom. And he shut up and scurried away. But he was talking crap.
Yeah.
Or at least, I'm pretty sure he was talking crap. Because that stuff that kicked off the bottom, we used to put a ball in at Tunnel Barn Farm. And if you broke the ball open, you could count the jokers. You didn't need points and points of it. You needed too much bloody lean, which cost an arm and a leg. And it had to be lean. But when you broke your board, I won matches at Tunnel Barn Farm with 1/4 of a kilo.
Yeah.
In nearly 3 kilos of lean. And you used to keep putting a ball in. Not like roach fishing where you didn't put anything on the edge, you've got to leave it for So, anyway, my knowledge of bloodworm and joker fishing is fairly slim. But I did talk to an England international about the Shakespeare team having lively joker and that would be all important. And he said no. He said you don't want lively stuff on the bottom of Evesham. You want it not kicking off the bottom and drifting off.
Right.
Which, well, I can only believe him.
Yeah.
He's an England international and I'm not. But you got 2 results there. You got the Shakespeare super team, albeit one on weight, with live and kicking joker, and you got a team that comes second, lost on weight, and allegedly they use Russian joker. But note I said allegedly, didn't I? So I
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You don't know.
But I did hear some very disgruntled men with stuff that was smelly on the bottom of newspaper. Now there's 2 ways to look at that. There's them rascals that's bringing it in here, What, are they doing it out the goodness of their heart, or are they making some coin on it? Whichever. But then you can argue the lazy buggers didn't go and scrape their own, did they? They wanted to rely on.
That's it. I don't think you could, the people bringing it in, they're doing a favour because people are requesting it, aren't they? People are asking for it,
and and also perhaps they're getting theirs, and so we'll get yours at the same time. But I mean, you know, I've heard, when you're talking to the people really at the top of the sport, you get to understand. Let me give you an example. Steve Sanders has just gone away, and he with Mark Downs and the England squad. I mean, you know, while they're driving on the way to Serbia, they might be, I don't know, they might be calling in on the edge of Serbia somewhere and picking up the Blood Women Joker, because they're in the know, aren't they? They're in the loop where the best bait's coming from. At least you'd hope so, wouldn't you? And I'm sure they are. And likewise with the England squad and people in the know. I mean, I do know that some bait didn't come by plane, some come by vehicle across the, it'd be under the tunnel. So some of it was Belgium stuff or French. I know there was a bloke working on, I don't want to talk names particularly, but, you know, he didn't do nothing wrong, but some people preferred it to come that way. I did hear that if you rely on the stuff coming on the plane, it's liable to be dead.
Right.
It just doesn't travel that well, does it?
No, I suppose that's the same as anything, isn't it? You can either try and use it as an excuse, or you can just make it your business to make sure you've got the best bait, and that's probably where you look at the level of prep that they're doing for the England teams. They don't leave things to chance, and that's how you win and be consistent.
It is the level of prep. I mean, I did hear Jamie Hughes, you know, the top man in commercial fishing at the minute. Well, at the minute, yeah, because there's fewer bait. But somebody said the other day, they said, you haven't seen the kind of preparation and effort that he put in until you see that man. Yeah. So, I'll have to step my game up a bit more.
Right. Evesham rounded up quite in depth, I would say. We'll move on to the UK champs. So, UK champs, final round was at Barston Lakes.
Okay.
Going into this round, Steve Cook was winning it. Ben Bell was up there, Ollie Scotthorne, Nick Speed, Scott Puddy. Then the top 10, there was Carl Hulley, Callum Dix sitting in 9th and 10th. Steve Cook drew what you'd think was a half-decent area. As it was, it didn't fish and he struggled. He's ended up only beating one in his section. Ben Bell, who was sitting in 2nd place, ended up going on to win it. Yep. So he's an angler that's over on the east side of the country, fishes Decoy Lakes a lot, doing well, fishing well at the minute. So congratulations to Ben. Carl Hulley and Callum Dix, they were 9th and 10th. Both fished really well on the final day and jumped to 2nd and 3rd. So brilliant performances by them. Really jumped themselves up, and so that sort of rounded up the UK champs. Ben Bell as the winner.
Yeah. Scott Puddy from Taunton, or
I think he's that way on. Yeah, like down near Viaduct, isn't it? I think.
Yeah. I met Scott at Meadowlands. Young fella, very, very respectful.
Yeah,
good angler. He's
very respectful. We had a good bit of banter. I think I pipped him by a few inches on the day, and we had some. We had a little bit of fun there.
Of course, yeah. He's doing well, and he fished really, really well the whole way through that UK champs. I think did he win? I think he might have won one of the rounds.
But am I right in thinking he rubbed shoulders with Steve Tucker and?
I believe so. Yeah.
I always forget the roof Tyler. He's I think Tucker learns all off him.
Right.
What's his name? The other? Oh goodness, Gary O'Shea.
Oh, okay. Yeah, from down that way.
Yeah, great pair of anglers, those two. Yeah. And they was coming all the way from down, right the way to Meadowlands.
Yeah.
And they loved it
for the winter
for the Silverfish League there. Yeah. And they loved it a bit. And Gary O'Shea showed us the way with waggler. I mean, waggler fishing. He come to the shallow lake on there and he catch 20-something pounds on the waggler and
on
the Warren pool, and you think, well, we should have been doing that, but they can't come now. It's too far. It's just the amount of miles for the just the effort. The effort's too much for.
Yeah, but he's a good angler.
Scott Puddy, yeah,
very good.
Was that just out of interest? I got to be fair. I haven't followed that one, but was that the match where there'd been that carp, a 48-hour carp race or something?
Yeah, it had been a couple of days before.
Yeah, because I did hear one or two having a few grumbles about that, you know.
Well,
but
the Carp seemed to shut up shop, didn't they?
They've not caught. I was talking to Colin Scott on it because he was
fishing the carp.
Yeah, does his carp fishing as well, and he was saying that it's just not really fished that well for them either.
It's the venue in general. Barston has fished really well this year. Records have been broken. It sort of fished in the early part of the year, and that sort of like hit a peak quite early.
Okay.
And when you hit a peak, you're always going to get a come down at some point. And I think now it's just that bit of a lull before they'll probably start feeding again before it gets colder.
There does come a point where they have probably had a stomach full of food.
Yeah, so it's fair play there. But Ben's ended up winning that with 7 points. Callum and Carl 9 points. So he's fished well and won the UK Champs. So prestigious event. It'll be on TV covered on there.
BT Sports
Sport.
normally do.
So well done to Ben. Moving on to a Patsel Park 3-day festival. This was sponsored by Real Elite, TriCast and Bait Tech. Real Elite put some cash prizes in. TriCast and Bait Tech put some tackle and bait in to the winners. 40 anglers fished it. And obviously at Patsel Park there's sort of 3 sections: shallows on the boats, deeps, and they sort of moved around in that sort of rotation. 3 days, Brian Clark has won it with 3 perfect section points. Won his section every day, total weight £137 2 ounce. He actually won the match on the final day just to top things off. With 60.
Dominating performance, that is.
That's the way to do it, isn't it? He's won the match. See ya. Like all his pay packets, just fanning him out.
Thanks for turning up. Thanks for pulling up.
Yeah, and to put that into perspective, Darren Frost, obviously Welsh international, was second in the festival with 8 points. So it's not like he's got 2 section wins and a second, 2 section wins and a third. It's obviously been there's been some peggy areas, but it's obviously been the standard of the field was brilliant.
Yeah.
So for somebody to go and win 3 sections is an outstanding
12 peg sections.
12 peg sections is an outstanding performance when you look at second having 8, and third had 8 as well. So Darren Frost. £104 2 ounce over the 3 days, and Adam Rumble was £89 over the 3 days.
Well, the only thing I would comment about Patsel is it's somewhere where I probably should have gone a lot more in all my years of fishing, and I've only ever been once.
I've been a few times now, but I went earlier in the year, and it's one of them venues that you walk up to, and it's sort of, you take a step back. It's a really lovely looking venue.
It is magical. It is certainly,
especially when I was sat on one of the punts, sitting out of that. It's a bit wobbly. And
I rode at the back of the hotel, I think, when I rode it, and I was clueless when I got to admit I don't think I drew well, but I think I was more or less clueless.
Well, it's fishing its head off now.
Going back a lot of years. But go back to what you were saying about festivals and points, and the festival that I fish is, or I have fished. I'm not sure if I'm going this year. There's still time, but I've fished 7 or 8 of the silverfish festivals at Whiteacres.
Yeah.
I'm not so enthralled with the carp ones. It's not my bag at all, so I give them up. But I carried on going with Steve Hemingway picked me up. That's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, very nice.
An English international picking me up.
You can pick his brains on the way down.
Oh yeah, and he picked mine a fair bit as well. But he would admit that, Steve, but he wouldn't admit it a lot. You know what I mean? He wouldn't. But I'm guilty actually these days. Very often, I certainly am guilty of not using other people's information as much as I should. I don't know whether that comes of age, stubbornness, or what it is. But I mean, in my early days, I was like a sponge, and then I think I've stopped and started as a sponge. Whereas, if you're a real information ponce, that's how you're going to fly quicker. Yeah. And I lost sight of that somewhere along the lines. And I mean, I have learnt a lot off Steve Hemingway there today. I mean, if you'd have seen me me tackle and everything, where I come from, can I say Tunnel Barn Farm?
Yeah.
It's not great saying it really, it's just, but anyway.
We'll come on to that one later.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll get to like your domination at Tunnel Barn Farm. Like.
Well, the thing was me preparation for there in a certain period of months was a couple of dozen size 12 barbless hooks to about 016, 018, so I don't know, 10 rigs.
Yep.
Most of them was duplicated in case of tangles. Some new elastic in 3 or 4 top kits. Didn't need many. I used to really take the piss out of them ones. When I used to see some with all these different rigs set up, I thought, well, they ain't winning. Because you didn't know which one to pick up.
Yeah.
Yep.
I did. I knew which one to pick up from 10 o'clock till 3 o'clock. But they was like, which one? You know, if they got a fanny about thinking about a rig to pick up, they ain't going to win. Not on a place where you're there all the time.
Yeah.
I think anywhere like Tunnel is a prime example of if you fall behind in that first hour,
You ain't never coming back.
yeah, the anglers are too good and they're not going to make enough mistakes
Yeah.
for you to catch up. And
We've gone. Some of the top anglers, if they're going to come and do pellet slapping and things like that, and the fish probably with a small hook and that, they might. Well, they will. They'll beat you then, especially if they got a lot of room.
yeah,
But if you're there all the time and you've got a buzz for what bait's what, I mean, eventually we know what bait I use. But no, let's go back to that. What I was talking about preparation, and Steve Hemingway was when I was when the decision was made for me that I probably wasn't going to do much commercial fishing again. I didn't make it, it was made for me really, because I had a season, I carried on with it a little bit, and I thought, I don't feel very welcome here really. So I'm going to go back, and I went back to river fishing, which was very difficult, because I mean I used to have 3-4 keep nets that was regularly full, and then I've got to go and catch like £10, and I've got to get excited about catching things like this again.
Yeah.
And what people might not be able to imagine was, I mean, I wear glasses now. I mean, that occurred when I was at Tunnel Barn Farm when I was 47 years of age. But there's a coordination between your mind and the hook you're using. And when you've been using a size 12 hook, mostly, for such a long time, and then you start looking at a 20 again and a 22, and you think, no, bloody hell, I don't. Did I used to use them?
Yeah.
And just psychologically, trying to get myself back to river fishing was not easy. And of course, it wasn't like the river fishing that I left. It wasn't an abundance of chub and waggler fishing. All of a sudden, there was a lot of pole fishing.
Yeah.
And I hadn't got any rigs set up. I mean, I don't fish now off a continental box. I still look like a dinosaur. When I see Joe Carras did a couple of sessions with me, and when I look at myself sat on the old matchbox and that, you know, and you think you old dinosaur. But the preparation I put in now is pretty. You know, I've got a lot of time on my hands, so.
Yeah.
But I've got masses of hooks tied and masses of rigs done up, and my poles are all well elasticated, and the same as a lot of anglers out there. But yeah, that commercial, my preparation, because my commercial fishing was predominantly Tunnel Barn Farm, with an occasional visit to Larford if I qualified for Maver Match this or something like that. You know, so I had become. I can remember Wayne Swinscoe saying to me, he said, "No, Lee, you've found the comfort zone." And I'd give up really big time match fishing. I'd really just, all I went for was, it was almost like a money box for me really, Tunnel Barn. Yeah. It was like a job almost.
Yeah.
When I used to get there, it was a job, you know, nets in boxes. And I used to drink alcohol at that time, and all. I'm dry now.
Yeah.
I've been dry for nearly 4 years, well, 3.5 years. But yeah, I used to drink a fair bit then as well, but I could still win and drink. But it was bloody hard. And of course, I was a carpenter as well, so it was hard work. I was physically drained come the weekend, and then after a few £100 of fish, I was drained even more. But I think I did. I think I had got to the point where I really went for the money.
Just getting into that routine of turning up, you know what you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
But I think there's probably quite a few people who end up like that, going to the same.
Well, where we drifted away there was we was talking about
Axel.
festivals.
Yeah.
And Whitacre, on that one, you got to draw your butt off 3 times, haven't you?
Yeah.
There's no, what was his name? Sorry,
It was Brian Clark.
My apologies to Brian Clark. I'm sure we've met and spoke at some time or other, but he must have drawn well, but he must be very good,
Yeah.
and his preparation would be impeccable as well.
Yeah.
And when you go to Whitacres on the Silverfish Festival, I went for 7 years, I think it was, and I did win a couple of sections, but goodness above, I was so far away from a festival place.
Yeah.
It was frightening.
Mm.
And I think maybe something what I've discovered in match fishing is if you start imagining how somebody else is fishing a venue and then try and fish to that imagination, you know, you're not going to win anything.
No.
Because he's already better than you.
Yeah, you're almost trying to beat someone at their own game. It's never, you've almost got to take certain aspects, bits of information, and then still do it your own.
You've got to take, and I think that's where you've got to take things the size of a float, the size of a hook perhaps, the percentage of fish meal to whatever, that kind of thing. But there's certain things you've got to have an element of you.
Yeah, you've got to understand why you're making the decisions you're making, rather than just taking what somebody's told you on board, literally doing it word for word, and then not actually know, because you don't know what's going to happen either way there either. You don't know if something changes, like, do you need to change, or do I carry on with what I've been told to do?
You're always you're chasing your tail, you are. And I know Steve Hemingway used to say to me, when we was going to White, he used to say, you're trying too many radical things. I mean, I wanted to make the waggler work.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I had it in my head that I couldn't beat him on the pole. And then, anyway, the one year I went and I thought, I'm going to do it my way this time. And I'd got 1 or 2 little ideas. I'm not going to tell you on this tonight. I'm not going to tell you what it is at Whitacres, because I want it. It's something quite simple, but I managed 3rd, not last year before, overall. And I should have won. I had 2 pegs where I was 2nd, and I know I should have won. It's not easy to be wide awake and alert, and this was even when I was sober as well. But it's not easy to be on the top of your game 5 days on the bench.
Yeah, I think and almost going in with that, I'm going to fish it my way. You're kind of a bit clearer on your thoughts. You know what you're going to be doing. You're more confident in it, and it's just almost less stuff to think about. But I think Jamie is probably a prime example of that, where he'll turn up to a venue knowing what he's going to do. Is not set up 83 different things, and probably what we're on to next with Maver is even to the point at the start of the day he didn't think he was going to catch on a pellet waggler because of the conditions, so he's not even bothered setting it up. He has ended up setting it halfway through the match because things have changed. So
fair play to him.
But that was a kind of prime example of...
Is that right? He set it up halfway through?
Yeah, sitting on the bottom, chuck that out, that had started drying up, and then he's just sat in a 60 grand final, like threading up his...
Yeah, so we'll move on to the Maver match this final now. So we were both there. I was sat behind Craig Edmonds as his bank runner, Rich was sat behind Jamie for most of the match, doing some filming, different bits and bobs. Craig has drawn the peg which most people wanted, to be fair to him. Jamie drew one peg to the side of where he was on Fishermania and was very, very close. And it was a really interesting match. Pretty much everyone started short on the short pole, gone in, and they've caught odd fish, but the foul looked a lot of fish, getting loads of indications and weren't hooking a lot. Craig and Jamie, pretty much, they fished a very similar match in a way. Started short, went onto the long pole wasn't great, and then chucked a bomb. Craig had sort of been told, similar to what we've just mentioned, he'd been sort of told, fish a bomb over to that island, that'll be best, ping some pellets over there. In hindsight, Craig pretty much knows that probably wasn't quite right. When I was sat there, I was sort of thinking the same thing. Jamie's fish, he's away from the island fishing into open water. He's chucked a bomb, and there's been spells in that match where Jamie has basically just chucked his bomb out, and it's just going round time after time.
Yeah, been fizzing up in front of him, and as soon as the wind died down, you could see there was a decent number of fish out there fizzing up and everything. And he's had a spell probably halfway through the match, hasn't he, where he's had a decent hour on it, I think, which took him probably £20 ahead of everyone else. At
that point, there was an hour and a half to go, and I had it that Jamie had £95 and Trig had £60-something, £65. There was about £30 in it. And Craig was getting a bite on the bomb or an indication on the bomb roughly every 20 minutes, which wasn't quick enough.
No.
But he'd been convinced that the bomb will come alive. You'll do it, and in the last 2 hours, it'll come alive.
Does that go back to what we were talking about?
It goes exactly back to what we were talking about. It's in Craig's head. In the last 2 hours, this bomb's going to be brilliant. And he was saying to me, the pole's not going to work.
Yeah.
The pole is not going to work. And he was battling with what in his head, he knew he would always do, and what in actual fact the venue was telling him was happening, and you could see it, and it was sort of like, and if you need to keep feeding your pole,
and if he could fish that match again,
he'd have walked it. I think in hindsight he'd have walked it.
I wonder how long his depression lasted, because I'm better now than I ever was, but I've got probably a 2-day depression after a bad performance. Some days it could be it could possibly be nothing, no depression, no remorse. I could be beating myself up for 2 days.
Yeah, and £55,000, which was the difference in the end. So we'll get to that.
That'd
is
be
quite
a bit depressing,
is
wouldn't it?
very, very incredible. He's beaten himself up. I've had multiple texts explaining different things.
Yeah.
So with an hour to go, it's got to a point. It's like Jamie is £30 in front of you. This should have happened sooner, but because of what had been said before, the bomb will work, it'll come alive, the decision took that much longer, because at some point you're fishing, you're getting indications, you're thinking at some point they're going to rock up, and it got to a point where they weren't turning up, and the method feed was chucked out, and he's had 5 in 5 chucks, literally like Jamie did in his best spell, where he'd chuck the bomb and it'd go straight round. He chucked the method feeder, first chuck, straight round, wound it in, carp, out again, carp, out again, Carasio, carp, Carasio. Right. 5 in 5 chucks, and he was saying, I hope this doesn't keep going round, because it's going to really piss me off if it does.
Sounded like they wanted feeding, didn't
they? Exactly, and feeding your pellets the distance wasn't quite right, and the bomb wasn't quite right.
You think about that. Look at that logically. It ain't really that very technical, is it? That you think about that. The only reason was the fish wanted some grain bait, weren't there? It can't be nothing else, can it?
No.
I mean, look, there's fish swimming around, so there's single pellets dropping through the water, and it weren't getting much response from that. So then he chucked someone in with some. They just wanted a bit of grain bait.
Yeah, they wanted focusing. There were fish there, and they needed focusing, and micros around a method feeder was the way that they wanted it. So
they've always that bloody micro pellets. It baffles me, but it works, doesn't it? It never. Me and pellets didn't really.
No.
I've never hit it off with pellets.
No, but he's basically done that. He's had them 5 fish in 5 chucks. He's chucked again, didn't have an indication, chucked again, another Corazio, and then an odd fish started getting caught on the short pole, and Triggs gone on it. And in the meantime, Triggs had 6 fish. Jamie had probably had another 2.
Yeah,
and
it slowed down, hasn't
he
it?
set this waggler up with about an hour and a half to go, roughly. He's chucked it and he's had 2. He's had one about 10
he had
pound.
one straight away, which was £8-10, something like that. And then he's gone back on the bomb. He's had odd fish on that, and then he's had as that's gone funny, he's had another little break and had one dead quick again.
Yeah.
So he's only had the 2 fish on the waggler, but as it turns out, he's kind of rested that, and that's, I think, ultimately won him 60 grand, doesn't it?
Because Triggs then, he didn't catch anything on his first visit short, but with 15 minutes to go, he's gone on it, and he's had 3 for, we think, they were all £7, basically.
Well, something there interesting, that, and it works on river. I fish the Bewdley midweek series, and the fish that makes a difference here is barbel. Big things.
Yeah.
7 to 7 upwards. And one thing that has become really apparent is sometimes the amount of time your line isn't in the water, giving fish the chance to
regroup and resettle.
Yeah, to get a little bit confident on the food.
But it's not always the quickest angler gets the best weight, is it? Sometimes the real steady anglers that are just in, play a fish nice and slowly, back out again.
Yeah.
And they're like almost giving the swim enough time to settle, because they're not that quick at fishing. They're not like whizzing in, whizzing out. They'll give it enough time to settle in between.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's
what we're talking about is high pressured fish, aren't we? Really?
Yeah.
Even on the commercials, some of these fish are they're pressured all the time, aren't they? And they've seen it. They've seen the. They know what the game is. They know you're trying to catch them. That comment there, it always reminds me of a thing Kevin Ashurst said when I was a younger man. And Kevin Ashurst was pretty blunt. Probably more blunt than me, really, but he talked a lot of sense as well. And he used to come to Stourport after his maggot delivery. And I was pretty chuffed because Kenny Giles said the next time you win a match, he said, I want you to buy a Gore-Tex suit. He said, stop getting wet. He said, you're a bloody top, you're a sportsman. He said, what do you want to get wet for? Buy yourself a Gore-Tex suit. So I did. And it had to be all green for me, so that I would blend in with the bushes. That was how I felt, right? And the trees. And I said, we was talking about this and the other. I said, same as a paint today, Kevin. I said, I've got my brand new Gore-Tex, all in green. These talking a load of bollocks, Newley. Eh? He said, the fish know that we've arrived. He said, everybody throws an handful of bait in at 10 o'clock. He said, it didn't matter whether you was wearing white. He said, Jan Porter wears all that red stuff and Bob Nudd wears a white cap. He said, you're not trying to hide anything. He said, they know we've come. He said, and what you got to do then is spend 5 hours convincing them to have the one with the hook in it. And I felt so silly, really. And but that was the way he talked, Kevin.
Yeah.
Such sense, and I mean, and I think yeah. And I remember seeing a barbel angler down at Fladbury last year, 2 years ago. And he dropped in below me, and before long he'd got 3 barbel off a bit of oil. This is at Fladbury, and it's pretty high pressured at Fladbury, below the weir. And he come and showed me afterwards, and he got 3 pellets on a hair rig, all different sizes, super glued onto a hair. He said they are. He said that's what tricks the barbel. He said they won't have one, or they will, but not regular. He said they won't have one, they won't have 2 same size in a line. He said they've got to be haphazard. You think, I never thought of that. what a radical thinking, what great thinking angling. And the top anglers now at Bewdley, when I say the top anglers, I don't mean to be rude to them, but predominantly feeder anglers, although they can float fish. They're no mugs.
Yeah.
But they are better at feeder fishing than I am at feeder fishing. As much as I'd hope to be a better float angler than they are. But respect to what they do for this barbel fishing. And they'll chuck in a medium black cap half a dozen times, and they are looking for a clear spot as well where there's no snags. Because if they're going to spend any time there, they don't want to be bodging it into a snag. And when we was talking about how long an angler's prepared to wait, and this goes back to Tom Scully, doesn't it? He might have been on his phone along. It weren't a bad plan, was it? He was resisting reeling in. And some of these anglers now, they'll have and they're spodding really for barbel, the same way as you might on a carp water. You know, you'll reduce the size of a method feeder, or they're going in a few times, finding that clear spot, and then they're going in with a little, a small black, the smallest black cap then on top, with a big long tail on. And they're catching roach. What we can't catch them on maggots, and they're great big roach like that on pellets, and it makes you cringe. But they're top of what they're doing. Their brains are ticking over all the time, and it's the same with like you said, Jamie Hughes there, and he knows how long to spend in a particular spot, and he knows how to prime all them spots up. Yeah, I remember wanting to beat the bugger pretty well, really. I remember him coming to Tunnel Barn Farm thinking, I'll have you over on my patch. And he caught 220 pound pellet fishing, and to qualify for Maver match this, and I was second with about 160 pound.
Yeah. He's done that to a few people over the years.
But
he's in all three this year.
He was on an end peg he was on an end peg, and you could, the next bloke, like, he needed binoculars to see him, but 220 pound. Yeah. But yeah, and I can remember him coming then. And my best mate, Paul Bick, he fished with Jamie Hughes on the teams of six, is it, at Tunnel, or used to. And Bicky was a regular on the water, and Jamie Hughes was a visitor. And Bicky said to me the other day, he said, I used to ask Jamie Hughes his thoughts on how to fish my peg.
Yeah.
It's just...
It's something Jamie does. Jamie can turn up at a venue, can't he? And he remembers every peg he's ever fished. He remembers how he fishes it. He knows different days how things are going to change.
Yeah.
And that's something that sets him apart, definitely. Yeah. And he, obviously, in this match, he's made that decision to set up the waggler. At the time, you thought it was a bit of a nothing move. You thought, well, what's he got? He's caught 2 fish on it. 2 fish. In the end, he's ended up winning by 3 kilo. Those 2 fish were really important, and he might not have caught them.
I think that it was one of those moves as well, where if it was you sat there and no one else is fishing the waggler, to actually be the first person to be confident in enough in what you think, and just be like, I could look daft here chucking a waggler for 20 minutes and catching nothing. But having that confidence that, I think this is going to work, I'm going to do it. And I think there's an awful lot to be said for kind of acting upon that first thought that comes into your head.
The conditions changed straight away, didn't they?
I've got to be honest, if I was one of those anglers targeting them big money matches now, I'd be pretty scared, I would, because the top men, like your Andy Bennett's, Jamie Hughes, I mean, John Winchcup, I don't know, he's obviously top man. What's he done now? Has he won his money and retired, has he?
No, he's still doing it.
Still knocking on the door.
He's still about.
He's been close an awful lot, but not quite done it.
I think that kind of proves it, doesn't it? How the standard that is going to these qualifiers now, that there's a few names.
Decoy was always the one for John, wasn't it? It was always like Decoy or John Wincup will qualify then. Yeah. And I think there's been a few more now. Decoy.
Well, there was and there's the Spro angler as well. Pellet, I can't think of his name now.
Perry Stone.
They used to say there's nobody better on pellet waggler than him, and he was like, I got to be honest, I don't follow it real serious, the commercial. The big money matches, I just look and
Jamie's done it again.
Firkin, Durkin, that's some problem. Better beat scaffolding because he was a scaffolder.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's won a few quid along the way now.
I think we worked
Fair
out
play.
every other year for the
Fair
last
play to the man, I mean.
quite a while. He's picked up 50 grand plus.
Yeah.
On it.
Fair play to him as well,
Yeah,
because you ain't got much of a lifespan in scaffolding.
No. So, but yeah, fair play to Jamie. Though the change arguably was the difference between 60 grand and 5 grand. Unfortunately for Craig Edmonds, if his change had came 5 minutes earlier, he'd have been looking at 60 grand instead of 5 grand. So
Yeah, and if the Queen had got what's it, she'd
he'd be the
been
king.
the king, and that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that rounds up a bit of a longer match catch up than usual. I think that rounds up that section nicely.
Okay.